Imagine a world where humans vanish overnight. Picture it. Cities stand silent, streets empty, and towering skyscrapers slowly swallowed by creeping vines and wild greenery. What would become of the civilization we've built over thousands of years? Would nature rise to reclaim its throne? And how would the animals we've shared this planet with, those we've both nurtured and threatened, adapt to a world without us? This is not just a thought experiment. It's a journey into the distant future, a world where our voices are silenced and our footprints erased. What would Earth look like after a year? A decade? A century? How would nature respond to our absence? Would it flourish, transform, or reclaim its ancient rhythms? And what remnants of our existence would linger as silent witnesses to the age of humanity? Before we dive into this captivating exploration, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any part of this incredible journey. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's step into a world where humans are no more and nature takes center stage. What unfolds might surprise you, inspire you, or even challenge the way you see our place on this planet. Ready? Let's begin. After one day, the beginning of systematic collapse. In the first 24 hours of humans disappearing, the Earth would begin to reveal how much the modern world relies on our presence. Power plants dependent on fossil fuels would gradually shut down as fuel runs out and maintenance ceases, leading to widespread power outages in major cities. Nuclear reactors, thanks to their automated systems, would enter emergency mode, with cooling systems operating independently to maintain safety. However, these systems have a limited lifespan before problems begin to arise. The sky would become a stage for unexpected events. Planes in the air at the time of humanity's disappearance would begin to fall one by one as fuel runs out or autopilot systems fail without human guidance. The crashes would cause explosions and fires in multiple areas, adding to the chaos that begins to unfold. In cities, trains would stop in their tracks, and self-driving vehicles would malfunction as digital signals regulating their movement cease. Factories operating on automated systems would continue production for a short time but soon stop as power and supply lines fail. Fire alarm and refrigeration systems would also shut down, leading to random building fires and spoiled food in stores and homes. Wildlife would begin to move into areas once dominated by humans. In rural areas, wild animals would start exploring villages and small towns, taking advantage of the absence of human activity. Pets like dogs and cats would face a new challenge, finding food and shelter after relying entirely on humans. Larger, stronger dogs would form packs to hunt for food, while cats would rely on their instincts to survive. At sea, ships without crews would become ghost vessels, drifting aimlessly with ocean currents. Fishing nets and traps would continue to operate for a while but would eventually fail, allowing marine life to break free and return to its natural state. Tall buildings and skyscrapers, though still standing, would face another challenge: lack of ventilation and maintenance. Humidity would begin to accumulate inside these structures, creating an ideal environment for mold and bacteria to grow. The clean glass we're used to seeing would gradually become dirty due to dust and airborne particles, giving cities a more somber appearance. By the end of the first day, Earth would become a strange and intriguing place, filled with silence and unfolding events resulting from the absence of humans. This is only the beginning of a new world, where nature slowly and systematically begins to reorganize itself. After 1 week, nature creeps into the cities. After 7 days of human absence, the features of the planet would begin to change noticeably. Preserved food in refrigerators and freezers would have completely spoiled, leading to the spread of foul odors that attract swarms of insects like flies and cockroaches. This rapid proliferation of insects would, in turn, attract rodents such as rats and mice, which would begin to multiply rapidly in the absence of human threats. On the outskirts of cities, wild animals would cautiously move inward, driven by hunger and a growing sense of safety. Wolves and foxes, which once feared human presence, would begin to roam freely, scavenging through piles of garbage and abandoned homes for food. Even birds of prey like hawks and eagles might approach the cities, taking advantage of the abundance of small prey like rodents. Rivers and water bodies surrounding cities, which had suffered from pollution for decades, would begin to recover. With the cessation of industrial waste and pollutant discharge, the water would become clearer and purer. Fish species once threatened with extinction would gradually return to these environments as ecosystems regain their balance. In the streets of cities, nature would begin to reclaim its territory quietly but persistently. Wild plants and weeds would start growing through cracks in sidewalks and along abandoned roads. Trees that were once confined to small gardens would extend their roots freely, their branches climbing up buildings and walls. Concrete structures that once symbolized the human era would begin to transform into natural canvases covered in greenery. Some pets, like dogs and cats that couldn't survive on their own, would become prey for hungry wild animals. Those capable of adapting would form small groups, hunting and adjusting to the new reality. After just 1 week, cities would appear to undergo a natural cleansing. As the signs of civilization wither away, and the presence of wildlife and vegetation becomes increasingly dominant, the world would seem to be moving steadily toward a new beginning, one governed once again by the laws of nature. After 1 month, buildings begin to deteriorate. Buildings and homes would start showing signs of damage, especially those made of wood. Public parks and small forests would become filled with wild animals. Water treatment plants would completely shut down, leading to the flooding of wastewater in some areas. Forests would begin to encroach on the edges of abandoned cities. After 1 year, cities turn into wild forests. After a year of human absence, change would dominate every corner of the earth. Cities that once bustled with human life would become new habitats for predators. Lions and tigers that escaped from zoos or reserves would find refuge in abandoned cities. With an abundance of prey, including former pets that have turned feral, these predators would thrive. Scenes of lions roaming the streets or tigers resting on abandoned cars would become common in this new world. Buildings that once symbolized human civilization would begin to show their fragility. Metal structures that relied on periodic maintenance would start to rust due to moisture, and without repairs, bridges and tall buildings would gradually collapse. Cracked glass and shattered windows would become entry points for plants climbing up walls and concrete pillars. Trees that were once confined to small gardens or designated areas would now grow freely, their roots extending into roads and breaking through sidewalks. Their branches would cover abandoned cars and creep through open windows, turning homes and buildings into natural caves covered in greenery. Wild grasses would blanket the streets, making them look like pathways in a forest. Wildlife would settle in clearly. Birds that had fled cities due to noise would return in large numbers, using high rooftops to build their nests. Foxes, bears, and even elephants in some regions would begin to adapt to their new environment, moving freely among the ruins of human civilization. In this new world, cities would become semi-natural wilderness areas, where remnants of civilization merge with elements of nature in a strange and awe-inspiring tableau. The green forests that had patiently waited on the outskirts of cities would creep into their hearts, erasing all traces of noise and modern life. Nature would once again prove its strength, breathing deeply in the absence of humans and reshaping the earth according to its own laws. After 10 years, forests dominate urban areas. Forests would completely take over most urban areas, and highways would disappear under layers of vegetation. Animals once threatened with extinction, such as elephants and rhinos, would thrive, as hunting would no longer pose a threat. Iron bridges and buildings would corrode due to rust, leading to their collapse. After 100 years, nature reclaims the earth. After a full century of human absence, only faint traces of the civilization that once dominated the planet would remain. Human infrastructure, a symbol of human progress, would have almost entirely collapsed. Modern buildings that stood for decades would gradually disintegrate due to erosion, as plants and trees overtook what remained. Skyscrapers that once touched the clouds would become piles of concrete and iron, buried under a green carpet of dense forests. Cities, once centers of human life, would transform into wild forests teeming with giant trees and wild animals. Asphalt roads would disappear under layers of soil and plants, becoming natural pathways for animals. Large mammals like elephants and buffalo would reclaim their territories, while wolves and lions would become the new rulers of this wild world. Rivers that were once constrained by dams and concrete walls would finally break free, returning to their natural courses. Water would flow freely, creating new waterfalls and freshwater lakes. These hydrological changes would reshape the landscape, as wetlands flourished and new natural vistas emerged. In the oceans, a true miracle would occur. Coral reefs, which had suffered from bleaching and destruction due to pollution and overfishing, would fully recover. Marine life would return to its former abundance, with colorful fish spreading everywhere and turtles and whales appearing in numbers not seen for centuries. The waters would become clearer, reflecting the blue sky without a trace of human waste. Birds that had vanished from cities during the human era would return to areas that had become natural paradises. The sounds of chirping would fill the skies, while eagles and storks soared over lands reclaimed from human ruin. After 100 years, Earth would become an entirely new planet, where nature had triumphed and imposed its laws. The once complex and noisy landscape would become simple yet breathtaking, embodying the beauty of natural balance, restoring itself whenever given the chance. Earth would stand as a silent witness to the power of regeneration and the enduring victory of life. After 1,000 years, the planet without human traces. After 1,000 years of human absence, Earth would have completely turned the page on our existence. The great cities that once bustled with life and activity would become mere memories buried by nature. Concrete buildings and asphalt roads that resisted for decades would disappear under dense forests, as tree roots spread to cover every corner where humans once stood. Plants would climb over the ruins, turning them into green hills hiding the remnants of human civilization. Very little evidence of humans would remain. Massive stone structures, like the pyramids of Egypt or ancient temples carved into rock, might endure due to their solid nature, but they would appear as mysterious relics of an unknown civilization. These landmarks would be covered in moss and plants, blending into the natural landscape. In the oceans, coral reefs would flourish, forming vibrant underwater cities. Shipwrecks and submarines submerged over the centuries would become artificial reefs, home to fish and marine life. Whales would roam the seas freely, and sea turtles would return to nest on beaches once crowded with people. The Earth, which had once suffered from pollution and destruction, would now become a natural oasis, with no evidence of the industrial age. Glaciers that melted during the human era might reform in some regions due to natural climate changes. Rainforests, once threatened with extinction, would return to cover vast areas of the planet, teeming with wildlife as they did thousands of years ago. From space, the planet would appear to be in perfect harmony. No glowing cities at night, no factories emitting thick smoke, just a majestic natural landscape reflecting Earth's true balance. The planet would become a natural masterpiece, as if humans had never existed, a timeless testament to nature's power to restore itself, no matter the odds. Thus, after 1,000 years, Earth would return to its primitive state, free from all traces of humans, as if it had never been home to billions of souls. a message to the future. This scenario is not just a fantasy, but a clear call to reflect on our impact on the planet. Are we guardians of nature, or a burden weighing it down? Can we reconsider our relationship with this planet that has given us everything? Perhaps the most important question we must ask ourselves is, how can we live in harmony with Earth before it's too late? The future of Earth is not yet written, and every decision we make today could be a turning point. What do you think? Do you believe humanity can change its course to avoid this fate? Share your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear your voice and vision. If you've reached the end of this video, it means you're ready to think deeply about these issues. So, write the word hope in the comments to let us know you're part of this important conversation. And don't forget to support us by subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell icon to stay updated on more exciting and meaningful content. Together, we can make a difference.